tuning in to my channel. Right, let's get to the spots. They are doing some renovations at the local McDonald's here. Just some improvements, I guess, and to make use of upstairs, which I'm not sure if they did or not before. I don't think so actually, which is why they're renovating it upstairs to actually make that extra space. Just find a nice little spot where I can sort of chill and talk, as it were. This might be a good little spot here. Right, okay. The topic I want to talk about is transportation. Get in. How are you, my friend? So, firstly, when we talk about transportation, let's say if you're here staying sort of medium to long term and you're looking to get from A to B basically, what would you look to be doing? Well, you first obvious thing is getting taxis, right? And the other thing is things like the other forms of transportation, of course, is the train and then obviously getting out tricycles and jeepneys, right? Well, in terms of costs, there's no comparison, there's no competition when it comes to, let's say, getting taxis compared to getting tricycles and jeepneys and trains, because they practically cost a fraction of what they do for taxis. But obviously you've got the sort of convenience element side of that, in that obviously it's going to cost you more in taxi fares because clearly it's more convenient. I need to get away from this sun actually, and I forgot to put on my sun protector as well. Yeah, no doubt getting taxis is convenient, gets you from door to door quicker and in a more convenient way. Now, when I say a fraction of the price when you're getting tricycles and bicycle taxis, because you can do that as well, but I believe that when it comes to bicycle taxis, it's a maximum of 2 passengers when you're going to do something like that. So if there's more of you, you're going to have to get more than a one-bike taxi. Let's talk about tricycles first, because as you will notice coming over here in the Philippines, that tricycles are everywhere, and so therefore tricycle is very much a means of getting from one place to the other. However, you've got to bear in mind that tricycles are only very localized. They cannot go on major roads, they cannot go on expressways, so therefore they can only really go on relatively short journeys where you're really just on a main road. So let's say, for instance, sort of kind of like this, you know, we're on the main drag here now. Clearly tricycles would usually travel along here, and obviously you have the stops here as well. You have certain stop points where they're gonna be hanging around waiting for passengers, just like where I'm approaching now. A bunch of tricycles parking up, and you just go up to the first one in line because it's done like on a queuing system, just like when you're getting like a Hackney carriage taxi, say in London, you know, if there's a queue of taxis, you don't walk up to, like, say, the back or in the middle. You go right to the front, because obviously they're on a queuing system, and you know, you go on the front one, and then they go, and then the one behind them is the next one to take any passengers. So, as I say, the tricycles are a very good way of getting where you need to in a short distance. And once you can obviously get a routine going, whereby you get to know the prices, because they are, I would say, pretty much fixed, although I say pretty much from one point to the next. But then if you start to go a bit further out, then obviously that's when you'll have to work out a kind of price, which is usually going to be pretty reasonable if you want to get to somewhere else, again, where it involves getting to somewhere where it's a bit more further out of field, but travelling along sort of like the main roads and the small roads, that should be fine. And then you got jeepneys. So what I would say is, tricycles and jeepneys, you know, if you're going to be looking to travel a certain amount of distance, I'll give you an example. Let's say from here where I am in Paranaque, which is practically right on the borders of Bicutan, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, which is a place, the SM Mall there has a tricycle terminus, if you like, where they stop and go from there. You can basically get yourself a tricycle from there most of the time during the day and during the evening time, right? And so I'll give you an example about using you know, where you can use a combination of tricycles with a jeepney. And again, the reason why you would be using a combination of tricycles and say a jeepney is because, as I say, you wouldn't be the tricycle will only be able to take you so far. They won't be able to go on any major roads or any expressways, etc. So therefore, what you would need to do, going back to my example, is, let's say I want to go to Mall of Asia, and I want to go from here, where I am, where I'm staying right now. I would be getting a tricycle up to Bicutan SM Mall, where the tricycle will terminate, and that's like a give or take a 10-minute journey, and that would cost me, let's say 60 pesos. Well, that does cost me 60 pesos, right, from where I stay. And then from there I would be looking at, because then you'd be looking to get an expressway over to Mall of Asia from Bicutan. And for that, I think it's really reasonable. It's around the same price as the tricycle, around 50-60 pesos, give or take, right? And from what I can remember, that's what it was. So in that situation, in that instance, yeah, I'd have to get a tricycle out to Bicutan, stop there, and then pick up a jeepney from there. So firstly, the cost is, well, if you top that up, 60 pesos and 50 pesos is just over 100 pesos, 110, 120 pesos, whatever. And in pound terms, that's like under £2 and around the $2 mark. Around £2 to get from here to Mall of Asia. I would say from here, all in all, door to door, would be about an hour. With, you know, like, let's call it sort of peak hours, or when it's busy traffic. Yeah. Of course, if you're traveling outside of peak hours, then I've heard it could be from Bikutan SM Mall, it's like round about half an hour or even less if the traffic's good, if the traffic's progressive, right? So a taxi, I believe, well, let's do it in a couple of ways. You get a tricycle to Bikutan, which will cost you 60 pesos, and then you would shave off a little bit of price. Obviously from where I am, I'll be looking to shave a bit of price off a taxi, because I think then it would be about 600 pesos for a taxi from SM Bikutan to Mall of Asia, right? Manila Bay. And I think that is taken in consideration if you're getting a Grab taxi. Now, I'll just slip it in with the fact that if you're getting a metered taxi, now, what I always encourage everyone to do is get a metered taxi, and when you're speaking to the taxi driver initially about where you want to go, etc., ask them if they put on the meter. Very frankly, do you put on your meter? And they will either say yes or no. Unfortunately, a lot of them do say no. A lot of them want to come up with their own prices, which invariably are a lot higher. So whichever way you look at it, if you're getting a metered taxi, then that's going to be cheaper than getting a Grab taxi. Now invariably, when you do opt for a Grab, over here it's mostly taxis. When it's like a normal four-seater with 3 or 4 people traveling, then it is actually a marked taxi that will be your Grab, that you order if you order the Grab on your app, because the taxi will take some commission from Grab, you see. Whereas if you just get a taxi direct, then obviously it's just, you know, the metered price, right? Me, I tend to get a Grab simply because there are so few taxis in my experience so far who are willing to put their meters on. Though you do get you do get drivers that are willing to put their meters on, and therefore you're going to get the fairest price you're going to get. But as I say, normally I will go for, you know, just to save all the hassle waiting, because let's say you're at a taxi stop, you will need to queue up for a taxi, and the problem with queuing up for a taxi is that there's no defined queue for a taxi. So some people will stand like, you know, at one point some people will stand on another side, and so therefore you haven't got a organized line, and there's no one, obviously there's no one there to organize a line for you for, you know, getting a taxi. So for me, rather than sort of, you know, usually when you say to people, because sometimes invariably it might be yourself who is not clear, and then you walk up to the first taxi that comes up first, and the other person will say, oh, I was waiting first, and you didn't notice them. You know, that might happen sometimes, right? You know, just innocently don't realise, right? And then the same thing with, you know, other people, when you've clearly been waiting there first, and then the other person, you notice the other person came afterwards, and then they approach the taxi when one comes, and then you'll have to say to them, sorry, but I was here first. And usually they will, you know, they'll be fine about it, they'll be totally sweet about it, and they'll be like, oh, all right, sorry about that, yeah, that's fine. But as I say, there's a bit of messing around here, standing there, and then when there's a bunch of people, do you know what I mean? You know, it just all gets a little bit messy. So rather than just standing there, I'll just pay that extra, I think it's 70 pesos, give or take, just to go on my app and just get myself a Grab and get a taxi that way. All right, so we've covered the example of going to, say, Mall of Asia from where I am. So those are examples of, say, getting transport either by taxi or a more affordable way of doing it, which would be tricycle and jeepney. Trains, of course, you would have to travel to a train line, which will probably be involved, yeah, just simply a tricycle. I don't think you'd have to involve in going into any jeepneys there. Not too sure about that. I've only done it a couple of times, but I think tricycle will do the job. Usually the train stations are coming off sort of like normal roads where tricycles can travel. So again, trains, very reasonable. Not sure the prices, but again, I think they're very reasonable prices. 40, 50 pesos. It might even be cheaper than that, but you get my drift, right? You get my point. Is that train, whether it's train, MRT, etc., whether it's tricycles, jeepneys, are a lot more of an affordable way, certainly, than a taxi. Now, what I say about in terms of a budget, when you're living on a budget, or where you're looking to be on a budget, I wouldn't necessarily put that in my budget. I haven't spoke about budgets yet because I have my own point of view on things like budgets, but I'm obviously specifically talking about transport now. But if you're looking to price in transportation as part of your budget, then obviously you'll be doing it in different ways. Do you only have to travel wherever you need to get to when it comes to the mode of transport, say on the lot more affordable modes of transport or a taxi? Clearly, if you want to travel by taxi, then you have to price in more of a budget for that. But again, why I don't necessarily price that in as a monthly budget is simply because, let's say if you don't have a regular job to go to, you're not here to work, and therefore you don't need to commute every day, then obviously, well, the way I see it is that your transportation costs can fluctuate, it can vary from day to day, and if at all. Yeah. So which brings me over to, and that's why I don't put really a fix in. I really put transportation into a more sort of a more fluid side of the budget, which is what I would talk about in terms of a budget. Now, yes, yeah. Hi, you want to say hi? You want a little shout out? Oh, do you wanna subscribe to my channel? Yeah. Oh, thank you very much, my friend. It's Dave in Asia. So my name is Dave. It's spelled D-A-V-E. Excusez-moi. In Asia. So Asia, A-S-I-A. See if you can find it. Oh, there I am. Yeah, there you go. Just there. Oh, thank you, my friend. That's very nice of you. So yeah, if you, I'm from England, London, England. Yeah, sure. Yeah, have a look, and have a look at the next one as well, where we will be saying hi on the video. Thanks a lot, my friend. Yeah, sure. Take care. Wow, that's lovely when you get that. Okay, so what I will say, and what was I going to say, what was my point, was that we covered the thing about, yeah, is it actually necessary, because you're not routinely commuting to, let's say, work or something like that. I mean, you could be doing other things which you'll be doing routinely, sure. So in which case, yeah, factor that into your budget. Now, there was a point that I really wanted to make that I'm probably going to have to come back to, because I really wanted to make that. Oh, right, okay, this is my point. Okay, location, right? So let's say, for example, if you decide to live in BGC or Makati, well, I mean, you're right in the middle of everything, you're right in the mix of it all, and the reason why you're there is probably because you want to be in the thick of it all. As soon as you walk out the door, you got everything there. You got cafes, restaurants, everything is at your convenience, right? But then again, there will be times when you would like to go outskirts, right? You'd like to go out and about, in which case, again, BGC and Makati have got all the, obviously, travel facilities, all the MRTs, all the train stations, and all the taxis. It's very easy to get yourself a grab there. The reason why I say that is because you go to certain places, and I'll mention Mall of Asia here. Every time I go to Mall of Asia, I find it very difficult to find myself a meter taxi to get myself back, well, basically to leave that area. The taxi drivers, they don't want to put on their meter, and they basically want you to give them a price, and if that price isn't good enough, they'll just drive off, basically. And I've noticed that more and more, well, that's been every single time, no exceptions, on every occasion that I've been to Mall of Asia. None of the taxi drivers want to put on their meters. And so clearly those times whenever I've had to leave the area to go home or whatever, actually there was one time where a taxi driver, I was having trouble because in that particular area, Mall of Asia, Manila Bay, I was actually having quite a hard time getting myself a grab as well, because you'll have a hard time getting grabs sometimes depending on the area, right? This is what I'm relating to in BGC and Manila, BGC and Makati, is that you shouldn't, I don't think, have a problem with, at the very least, be getting grabs, right? And meter taxis, I think, actually I'm not sure, actually I'm not going to make a comment on that, because I can't think of an example where I went and got a meter taxi in BGC or Makati. But what I will say is, going in and out of BGC and Makati, I've never had a problem with a Grab. Yeah. But going back to Mall of Asia quickly, Manila Bay, yeah, the 3 times, a couple of times, I managed to get a Grab eventually. And then there was one occasion where I was waiting for a Grab, and obviously I had the price there. It was about, I think it was about 400, 450, something like that. And the taxi driver actually quoted me 300. So obviously I just, you know, quickly capitalized on that and just agreed to it. Actually, in principle, well, if you're going by my principle, really, I broke my principle, because what I normally say to myself is, if nobody agreed to all the taxi drivers who refused to put on their meter and only would agree to get into a taxi if the taxi driver switched on their meter, then all the taxi drivers would have no choice but to put on their meter. Now, let's say you're staying in the outskirts like I am. I'm in Parañaque, which is, so from where I am, it's roughly about, give or take, because when traffic is quite progressive and it's outside of peak hours, it can be less than half an hour from where I am. If the traffic is, let's say, peak hours and it's heavy traffic, it can be about 45 minutes, I think. I haven't exactly timed it from door to door, but that's roughly how I've put it. I think I'm more or less correct there in what I'm saying there. It's really very much give or take those kind of figures, right? And for that, I'm paying around, for BGC, I think it's about 500 to 600 pesos. And then to Makati, right, I've never gone to Makati directly from my place. I've usually gone from SM Mall, Bikutan, which, as I say, if you were to get a tricycle, which is that's what you do, which is 60 pesos, that would be trimming off a bit of the taxi fare anyway. So I would get a Grab from outside the SM Mall, the taxi stop there, and that would cost around 300, about 300 pesos. Yeah. So that's around about so location. I stay in, it's very much an urbanized city area, although it's not your BGC and Makati. And again, looking at another point of view, if you like, if you're staying in somewhere where I'm staying, there are clear benefits financially to staying outside of BGC and Makati, because I can get cheaper rent basically, and cost of living, etc. But then at the same time, I can, you know, travel in to BGC and Makati as and when. I've tried suggesting previously, before, in another video, that this is why it could be an advantage living, let's say, doing something like what I'm doing, is so that you get a slightly lower cost of living, but at the same time, you know, you're not that far away when you want to get to BGC and Makati. But then again, you know, if you are on a budget and you stay in BGC and Makati, the thing is with that is that as soon as you walk out the door, everything's going to be, you know, city prices. you know, when you go and get your coffee, you know, when you go and get your dinners and things like that. They don't have any tricycles around there, and they also do not, so when I'm talking about in terms of being on a budget, they don't have like little like sort of caranderias, not that I know of anyway, and little tiny sort of more affordable kiosks that you can go and eat in, little stores. I'm not sure about that, but that's the impression that I get so far. But certainly not to the extent of, you know, the, you know, affordable little hideouts that you do here. So I think I've covered the main points that I wanted to bring out about traveling, location. This is why I want to be in sort of like the outskirts. It's more affordable if you're on a budget, etc., to be in these outskirt areas, but whilst being in a city at the same time. Incidentally, this goes back to what I was saying about regular traveling, because say for instance, if you stay somewhere like where I stay, then I actually got no reason to go to BGC and Makati all the time, because I've got everything that I need at my disposal here. There's shops everywhere. All the major fast food outlets are here. Pizza Hut, KFC, McDonald's, Shakey's Pizza, Panda Express. The list goes on and on. Chowking's, the list goes on and on. It really does. There's quite a few mini marts here where you can do all your shopping for all your groceries and everything like that, and little market stalls as well if you just want to buy some fish and some meat and things like that. So I just thought I'd slip that in. All right, okay. So the other thing I wanted to go on to, the other part of the topic matter, the other aspect of it, if you like, is the other thing you can consider is getting yourself a vehicle. Clearly that's a lot more convenient. Before you do anything like that, what I might suggest is that you rent vehicles first. To do that, I know from England you can get yourself an international driving license, which you would need in order to rent any vehicles, cars or bikes. You would need yourself an international driving license, which means that you have to go to the local post office and you present your full driving license over the counter. The international license itself will cost you about £5 or something very small, a small fee. Okay. Now, let's say you come over here and you think to yourself, right, I'll just buy a vehicle. I've got myself a condo, I'm renting now. I'll just buy myself a car or a bike or a moped or an electric bike or electric scooter or whatever. Might I suggest that you rent first? You get experience of being in tricycles. Now what I say is, the reason why I say that, get experience of traveling in tricycles, is because you get to understand the way of how people ride and people drive over here. The etiquette is very much different, and for that matter, the whole of Asia. I mean, I used to drive in Malaysia, and it can be, it can be quite, let's put it this way, you won't be used to it if you've been driving around in Europe and, well, I'd say in England. You would not be used to driving in Asia if you don't have experience being on the road when it comes to, I would say, somewhere like Philippines, it's a good opportunity for you to get experience of going on the tricycles. You would get to see how they negotiate around traffic, and especially around peak times, peak hours, the way they negotiate around traffic. That will give you a sense of awareness of how tricycles and mopeds, the bikes, and cars for that matter, negotiate when it comes to traffic, especially when it comes to peak hours, or any hours for that matter. The driving etiquette is very different over here, and so therefore might I suggest that if you're going to buy yourself a vehicle, get yourself experienced as a passenger on a tricycle, as a bike, getting bike taxis as a bike passenger, renting out scooters, bikes and cars first before you actually purchase a vehicle, because obviously purchasing a vehicle you would have to come up with a considerably more amount of money, a certain amount of capital to purchase yourself a vehicle. So yeah, I mean, it'd be fine once you get used to how the way traffic works around here. It'd be fine. So I've just realized that when I was talking about traveling and I was going through, say, from where I am over to BGC or Makati, that I was paying, say, 300 to Makati from, say, SM Mall to Bikutan, which is round about a 20-minute to a half an hour drive. I didn't convert that into pounds and or US dollars. So 300 pesos, 300 UK pounds. that's an airfare, isn't it? 300 pesos, let's say, for a 20 to 30 minute journey from Bikutan SM Mall to Makati. 300 pesos, which equates to £4.80 UK pounds, just under £5. Yeah. And if you're talking US dollar terms, that's about $5.50, $5.50, something like that. $5.50, which is 300 pesos. And if you're saying from where I am to, say, BGC, which is roughly about half an hour journey, give or take, in a taxi, then I've paid, let's put it at a higher end. I said about 500 to 600 pesos, but let's call it 600 pesos, yeah, and assume that it's a grab that will be a grab that you're taking, because I would be booking a grab from my app from my home where I stay. So when it comes to UK pounds, so that's under a tenner, under £10, £9.60, £9.70, under £10 in UK terms, and in US terms, $11 US dollar terms, $11. Anyway, there it is. There it is. There's my input on transport and travel. So I hope I've given something useful there. I will see you for the next installment. See you later.